Welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This how-to podcast is focused on empowering you to live your best life by incorporating the principles of the law of attraction, NLP, meditation, and other spiritual teachings. I'm Jeannie Hall, a certified NLP practitioner and creative empowerment coach. Let's get you empowered. Hello, and welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This is episode 21, Capturing Creativity. And first of all, I want to apologize for being a day late on this podcast. I've unfortunately been a little under the weather, and it was involving a sore throat, so I did not get my podcast recorded like I normally do. So I do apologize for my tardiness on this, but we're getting it out a day late, so hopefully that's not too bad. And I just want to thank all of you for listening and for showing your support. I really do appreciate it. So today I'm going to talk about creativity. And as a creative empowerment coach, I work with writers who are typically suffering some sort of writer's block and makes them feel like they're not creative anymore, or that they're having problems finding their creativity. And anytime you see some famous author being interviewed, almost inevitably the interviewer will ask them some form of question that comes like this. And they ask them, where do your ideas come from? Right? You'll see that over and over again. And sometimes the author will say, I don't know. And sometimes they'll mention past experiences that inspired them to write about something. Or sometimes they'll just say something like, the idea just popped into my head. And any of these answers may be true. But oftentimes the way our creativity comes to us is by us being aligned with our inner selves. And I personally feel like that's the best way to be creative. Because when you do that, you're not having to force anything. You're not having to push yourself to try and create when you are feeling bad in some way. So, and as someone who's just getting over an illness, I totally understand. Sometimes when you're sick, especially, the last thing you can do is have your creative well full so that you can write. Usually you're just so, sometimes you're so sick you can't even get out of bed, much less get up and perform as your best self. So if we're not aligned, our creativity is often affected in a negative way. And not just our creativity, but our bodies overall, our thought processes, our mindset, everything can be negatively affected when we're out of alignment with what we really want and what our beliefs are. Maybe you have a desire to increase the money that you're bringing into your household, and which is great. But let's say too that you have a different belief, a limiting belief that tells you you can only get money in a very specific way, like through a paycheck at a job, let's say. So if you have that limiting belief that money can't come to you in any other way, that's going to limit your options on how you can receive money. And the truth of the matter is you can receive money from a million different ways. There's no limit to the way that abundance can flow to us in this universe. But a lot of us are not raised that way. A lot of us are raised with the belief of money doesn't grow on trees and all those types of sayings that a lot of us raised with. And when you've had a belief since your childhood, it's very easy for that to become cemented into the back of your mind without you even realizing it. You don't even often realize it is a belief because it's so automatic. But it is. And because it is, you can change it. And any limiting beliefs can certainly stifle your creativity, especially if you're someone who is a creative, whether you're a writer, whether you're a painter, whether you're an artist, whether you're a musician, any of those types of fields where you take nothing and create something out of it, or take something that's something else and change it into something beautiful, then that tends to be something that, if you're out of alignment, becomes very difficult to do. And sometimes the lack of alignment and not feeling like your beliefs are in line with your desires may not be related to writing at all. Like I mentioned, beliefs can affect how you feel about money. So let's say that you are a writer and feel creative a lot of the time, but maybe you've run into a situation where you don't feel creative. You feel like you can't write for whatever reason, something going on in your life or whatever. But if you have a belief that you feel like you're charging too much for your books, and you feel like that's why they're not selling or something like that, that's a worthiness issue. That's a belief that you're not worthy of the cost of that book. And I have run into that myself. My first novel as a paperback came out and sold at a $16 price point. And I remember thinking that, oh God, that's way too high. No one's going to buy it for that. It's not worth that. There's no way I'm going to sell that book at $16 a pop. And it's so ironic because I spent 10 years writing that book. So how could 10 years of my life not be worth $16, right? When you really put it into perspective. And granted, ebooks are cheaper, and definitely the ebook is only like $4.99. So there's that for people who need to save money and things like that, or want to. And that's totally fine. But the worthiness issue was my own. It was an issue that I had to deal with and realize, why is 10 years of your life not worth a measly $16, Jeannie? What are you thinking? Right? So those limiting beliefs can creep in there and affect us in ways when we don't even realize it's happening. And that is so often what happens whenever there's a lack of creativity and a way that stops us from doing what we really want to do and creating what we really want to create. And if something else is in our lives that is causing us to experience stress or negativity or resentment or anger or sorrow or some other soul-crushing problem, then our creativity can disappear entirely. Some sort of emotional upheaval that doesn't resolve itself pretty quickly can also steal away that well of inspiration that we writers draw from on a regular basis. And it can be anything. It can be a relationship, romantic or otherwise, that falls apart. That's very stressful. It could be the death of someone we love, which is devastating. It can be maybe a move, maybe a physical move, like you're moving from one area to another and miles are involved and it takes a lot of effort and money and time to do that. It could be difficulty with our children or another member of our family. It could be a medical diagnosis or injury. It could be professionally related, so like a day job maybe taking so much of our time, or maybe it's a very stressful job and it kind of interrupts our ability to create. Or it could be directly related to writing and publication, like a looming deadline that causes us to freeze up because we're overwhelmed by it. This happens to a lot of writers too, and it tends to suck the joy out of writing. And it's interesting because I shared a blog post recently on a blog that I belong to, the Sisterhood of Suspense, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But that was basically something I was talking about, is if, joy can be derived from writing, and it should be in the best of circumstances, right? I mean, that's why writers write, is for the pure joy of it. That's why creators create. That's why all of us create our lives, is for the joy of it, or hopefully that's what we're doing. That's how you create a lot of happiness and pleasant feelings in your life. And if you can't feel that way because you don't derive joy from it anymore, even if you once did, then it kind of really sucks. It just sucks all the life out of you sometimes. And that's something I discuss in that blog post. And sometimes a deadline can motivate an author. I know lots of authors who are motivated by a deadline. They're like, oh, I got to get it done, so I'm going to get it done. And it motivates them and it helps them. Some people, that works for them. But others, a deadline just freaks us the hell out. And the pressure of trying to get something ready and edited and revised or whatever it is that we're trying to meet by a certain time period, sometimes it just overwhelms us and it just makes the writing become work. And work is not, when we start to look at something we enjoy as work, suddenly the joy falls right out of it. So any number of issues can arise in our lives that can rob us of our muses, basically. There are few things that scare a creative more than the lack of ability to create. Because when that's what you do, especially for a living, and then suddenly you can't, or you feel like you can't, that's very frightening. And it's kind of like a long distance runner suddenly losing her legs. Without having that essential component, even if she has been a runner her entire life, if she loses her legs, or if her legs no longer work for whatever reason, she may easily feel like she's not a runner anymore. And thankfully nowadays there's ways to correct that. There's all sorts of new apparatus out there and wonderful things that can help, prosthetics that can actually really help runners to still run and get their running back and be able to do what they still love to do. But if that is taken away from someone, it feels devastating. And I've heard from authors before that if they are not creating, it makes them wonder if they're allowed to call themselves writers anymore. And that is so sad to hear. Whenever I've heard this from another writer, I've actually seen someone write, I don't think I'm a writer anymore. I don't know if I'm a writer anymore. And if this is you, please hear this. If you write or have ever written anything and you want to be considered a writer, no one in no circumstances can ever take that away from you. That is your right. That is your joy. And you get to do that as much as you want and whenever you want. No one else can tell you you're not a writer. Now, if you decide you don't want to be a writer anymore, that's a different thing. But just because you're struggling with something doesn't take that title away from you. And it doesn't have to mean that it's lost forever. Because this life is a gift and it's also a journey. And the only problem with journeys is that no one ever promised us that those journeys would be smooth all the time. There are bumps in the road and there are blind curves that come from out of nowhere, and even the occasional flaming car wreck right in front of us. Sometimes we're in it. So it happens. But those difficulties don't have to mean that our journeys are over. Not at all. And they don't have to mean that we have to give up something that lights us up from inside, something that sets our soul aflame. We do not have to give that up. What those difficulties and roadblocks really mean is that we are here to learn something. Usually a lot of things. And if we look at it that way and say, okay, what is God or the universe trying to teach me in this circumstance? Then it can kind of give us a different perspective, and it can let us step back and out of the emotion of it a little bit and be able to dissect it and to analyze it a little bit and realize, okay, this is happening. Why is this happening? Let me figure it out. And it puts you in a different frame of mind, and it's a much more helpful frame of mind than just feeling overwhelmed and horrible. And this is what I believe. I believe we are all here in this human existence to develop and to grow and to evolve into better people. We're here to become more than we have been. And doing that is sometimes hard. But the thing to remember is that you are never alone in your journey. Not ever. All of us are connected by sharing this experience together. And we're all also connected to that higher power, that God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, your inner self, your higher being. There is always this kind, benevolent, and loving energy here with us, inside of us, supporting us every single day. And the key to remember is that that connection is there. It is right there with you. And it's not like God only speaks to VIP members only, right? In reality, we are all VIPs. And we are all doing this very important work of learning and expanding all that is. So listen. Listen to that inner guidance that you have access to. All of us have access to it. And don't think that I don't have problems with this too, because I do. I'm just as human as you are. I have to do this myself. I have to remind myself that I am a spiritual being and that a difficulty that I'm going through is there for me to learn and to change and to evolve from. And like recently I came to a personal crossroads, one which I think is going to be incredibly important to the direction of my life overall. And to those of you you've listened to this podcast before, you already know I'm transitioning from a full-time day job to full-time coach and writer. And because I once attempted to do something similar before and I failed at it before I had left a teaching position and I didn't have any job waiting for me in the awning. So now, because I'm in a similar position, it's really triggering me. It's really causing all those same emotions to come up into me, and there's this mitigating fear that I will fail. And failure is not what we want to do. Most of us, we do not set out when we get up in the morning, I'm going to fail today, right? And the thing about failure, though, is that it is part of success. All of those who succeed really spectacularly in life have failed, most of them several times. So, and we've been taught that failure is so bad and evil and horrible and painful. And the truth of the matter is, all failure means is we're not quite there yet. Yet being the operative word. So just if you've ever done something and you didn't quite make it, don't look at that as a failure. Don't give yourself an F on your own report card, right? Just think of it as another stepping stone. Okay, I learned that doesn't work. Let me try something else. I'm not quite there yet. That's all. That's all that is. So right now, if I do this and I fail, it's just because I haven't gotten there yet. So if I leave the day job I have right now, that I pretty much hate, and I fall flat on my face financially, then I'm going to chalk it up to I'm not quite there yet. But there's a big fear there for me too. I fear that I'll put my home and car and all my possessions in jeopardy. And I have this fear there because I've been in this position before. And even though I didn't lose any of those things, I didn't lose anything important, it was still very frightening at the time because I was fearful that I would. But it didn't happen even then. So it's important to remember when you're in a transitional period and you're in the middle of making an important decision that's going to affect a lot of areas in your life, or a really big area in your life, that it's okay to feel those feelings. Oh, my kitty cat's saying hi. Hi, Tink. And it's okay if your body is panicking, because that is just it experiencing something that it hasn't felt before. And in order to grow, we have to allow ourselves to feel what we haven't felt before. I mean, back when I went through this before, I experienced unadulterated terror. I would wake up in the middle of the night out of breath because I was having a full-blown anxiety attack. And those memories are very strong in me, especially right now, because I have no desire for a repeat. But here's the thing. Those things happened to me 7 years ago. And I'm not the same person that I was 7 years ago, and neither are you. So if you're going through a transitional period like I am, just have that knowledge there to comfort you. That is what is comforting me right now, because I've learned a great deal about myself and this vast universe since that time. I've learned that I am 100% supported now and forevermore. I've learned that I can experience things like fear and panic and even have anxiety attacks and live through them and come out the other side stronger than I was. I've learned that even though things looked dark and terrifying at the time, everything ultimately turned out okay. It really did. It was fine. Nothing was ruined. I didn't become homeless. And when times were at their most desperate, an opportunity did arise. When I took that opportunity and fear sabotaged me, making me fail, the first time I tried to go out and be a door-to-door insurance sales lady, something I am not very good at, I did fail at that, but I survived it just the same. Did it hurt to fail? Oh yeah. Did I cry and doubt myself? Yes. Did I still come out the other side resolved to pick myself up and try again? Absolutely. So this is how I know that I'm going to be okay this time. And I'm even pretty sure that this time I'm not going to fail. I could be wrong, of course, but I feel like this time I'm going to succeed where I failed before, because this time I know how to face my fear. This time I know my fear doesn't have the power to defeat me unless I let it. I'm the one in control here. I'm the one in the driver's seat, not my fear, unless I give it that power. 7 years ago, fear was in the driver's seat. Absolute sheer terror was the one in control, not Jeannie. But now I understand so much more about how this universe actually works. I didn't know back then half of what I've come to understand. Maybe more than half. So now, when my fear starts to nip at my heels and my heart starts to race and my pulse starts to do backflips, I'll take a moment to do these 3 things. Number 1, I'll take several deep breaths. I'll inhale for 8 counts. Hold for 3 counts. And release or exhale for 8 counts. I'll do that as many times as I need to. And just that alone can help calm your mind when you're in the midst of panic. Number 2, what I'll do is I will remind myself that I am never, ever alone. That the universe always has my back. That everything that happens is happening for me, not against me, not to me. And that belief is very powerful as well. Because when you know that you have an unlimited power that is on your side, rooting for you, cheering you on, suddenly you realize, I'm stronger than I thought I was. I can totally do this. Yeah, it's hard, but I can do it anyway. And number 3, I'll repeat a mantra, an affirmation that reminds me that I am an empowered spiritual being made of love and light. And it could be any sort of mantra, and as long as it's positive. So maybe I'll say, opportunities open up for me everywhere I look. Or maybe it'll be, prosperity and abundance are showing themselves to me in obvious ways. Or maybe it'll be, I am connected to God and have nothing to fear but fear itself. You know, it's never a bad idea to throw some Roosevelt in there after all. And I may take another day job that is less stressful and allows me to kind of baby step my way to my heart's desires, a little safety net. In fact, I'm kind of working on that right now so that I can switch out of the stressful day job and into something a little more my speed. And that's okay, you know, you don't have to take these giant leaps into the abyss if you're not ready. Sometimes people will tell you, oh, just do it. But then the panic hits and then you feel like you've made a huge mistake. And if you fail, like I did 7 years ago, it really then kind of confirms to you and seems to support and give evidence to the fact that you weren't ready. Not to say that you can't. If you feel like you can, then hey, it's your decision. If you want to, go for it. But I know in my own experience, I always feel a little better. Not to say I'll never take a giant leap. I'm learning to be more bold and brave and courageous. But it's okay if, while you're being bold and brave and courageous, if you do it in baby steps. If you take a little bit of time. You know, it depends. If you're trying to make a major change in your life like that, and you're trying to go from day job to supporting yourself completely in a business or being an entrepreneur, you know, it depends. Do you have someone there to help support you financially? Do you have some extra money in a savings account or in a bank or in an investment that you can depend on if things go south? Do you have an extra support system of some sort that can help you? Because if you do, then it's a little safer to take that leap. If you don't, you might want to do a little bit more of the baby stepping. Or if you just are feeling so much terror that you'll think you'll be overwhelmed, it's okay to take those baby steps. It totally is. So don't be hard on yourself. Be compassionate. Hi, Tink. She's back. Sorry, guys. So there's other things I can do to baby step it as well, even if it's not another day job. I might do an online job to supplement my income so I can focus more on my coaching practice and more podcasting for you guys. I've got so many ideas for like meditation challenges and things like that I totally want to do with you guys. And right now, the day job keeps that time so limited that's difficult. And I'm really looking forward to having more time. I may move forward to create an online course, which I've had in the planning stages for a while now. And it really, honestly, it almost doesn't matter what baby step I take or what baby step you take. The main thing is that whatever happens, I will not give up. And I hope that if you're in the middle of a large transition like I am, that you don't give up either. Don't give up on yourself. You deserve the best in life. You deserve to be happy. And something that I tell myself frequently and have for a long time as a writer, that I did not come this far to only come this far. And neither did you. So follow your dreams. Be brave and bold and do what you really want to do. And if you need to baby step it like I do, I have and do still, check out my coaching page and see if any of my various packages or one-on-one coaching sessions will be good for you. If it feels good to you, if it resonates with you, then book a mini session. See if you like what I have to say. And if you do, together we can bulldoze right through your fears. You don't have to do it alone. So I know I certainly have not been alone. I have reached out for help many a time. And that has made all the difference. I've had my own coaching. I've gone to other people for coaching, and it has made such a huge impact on me and made such a difference. So that's why I recommend it so highly, because it has changed my life so much for the better. And sometimes your greatest resource is just talking to someone else who's been there and done that. So if you're going through something and you want to make a change, feel free to contact me. So, to wrap up the podcast, thank you so much for listening, as always. And I really, really do appreciate you listening. And as always, I hope and pray that you have an empowered day, week, month, and year. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. If you've enjoyed this content or found it helpful, please let me know by leaving a review. I upload podcasts every Wednesday and Saturday, so subscribe to receive these regular updates. Now, go out there and live a more empowered life.